So I can't believe I'm saying this, but in a very, very random, wild thing, welcome everyone to another fourth stimulus check, fourth stimulus package, because in today's video, we are going to be taking a massive, massive blast of the past to talk about whether or not we're going to potentially be able to see stimulus checks again pop up in 2024. This is particularly inspired because there is actually a good number of people that are still asking me about stimulus checks, about whatever happened with stimulus checks. Is it still going on? All that stuff. There's a lot of people that obviously gave up hope. There's a lot of people that kind of know that stimulus checks are not necessarily happening. The answer to this question about whether or not we're going to be able to see stimulus checks in 2024, or for some people simply put, free money, and for other people survival checks, because obviously there are still a lot of people that are struggling, and I think that they deserve a level of voice out there, is a little bit more complicated. A little bit more complicated to answer, especially because we are talking about something that's about the future, but nobody knows the future because the future has not happened yet. But today's video is going to be able to explain, or certainly try to explore, what people are predicting when it comes to the world of stimulus checks entering into 2024. And it's going to be a little bit of a complicated answer, so I highly recommend checking that through. And this is actually especially true because right now, obviously, our economy is still struggling. There's some really, really great news that we shared in one of the previous videos, which I'll put at the very, very end screen. You guys can watch that video. I think it's literally just called Some Really Great News to Share, Finally Share. You guys can watch it, after you finish watching this video. But obviously, there's also a prediction on the other bearish side that a lot of Americans are also expected to run out of money relatively soon. So there's really two sides to this. There's some great news, but there's also some not so good news. And so obviously for a lot of people, stimulus checks are actually also going to be survival checks for some people, potential survival checks, if you happen to be in that category, which is what we are going to explore all of in today's video. So if you guys enjoy videos like this, consider smashing the like button because we are taking a blast of the past. I do miss you guys very, very much, and I do want to maybe insert a quick notice, is that if you are someone that has known me since the stimulus check days, it's been obviously a real while. There's a lot of people that I know left my community, not to no surprise. There are people that left my community during that time, but if you happen to still be here, huge love. Thank you guys, because I think it means the world to really know that you guys are still here. Feel free to leave a comment if you guys just want to be heard a little bit. I think it's really cool to hear from you guys. So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and let's get this video started. So when it comes to the world of fourth stimulus checks in general, we're going to start by talking a little bit about the federal checks. So basically what it means is that the stimulus checks that were meant to go out to almost every single person that met that requirement across all 50 states. So the traditional stimulus checks that we're talking about. And it really is that the not so good news maybe to share is that the probability right now, or the foresight right now, is that sadly fourth stimulus federal checks are actually now officially over, and they've been over for quite a while now, but I think it's just really important to be able to put out there. Fourth stimulus check, so the money that you receive from the first, the second, and the third stimulus check, the fourth one sadly just never came to happen. And that's one of the big things I think is really important to really absorb. Now, there are going to potentially be some ways that you can still receive some free money, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. But the big idea really to talk about the federal checks is that because during that particular time period, in order to do stimulus checks, they had to print a lot of money. But that's actually what ended up leading to a lot of the heavy inflation that we ended up suffering and seeing during the last couple of months, or for the last 1 to 2 years. So at this current point in time, they're actually trying to do the opposite. Instead of trying to print money, they're trying to do something that the correct term really is quantitative tightening. They're trying to essentially remove money from our economy in order to try to balance it out so inflation doesn't get too out of control. So because of that reason and that particular logic, sadly what it means is that fourth stimulus federal checks are now, and have been, officially kind of put off of the table, sadly, right now at this particular time period. Maybe they will come out in the future again, but it's probably not going to be the near future. It's probably going to be the long-term future. However, the good news is that there might still actually be some ways that you can potentially receive some free money, because the story right now is that actually one thing that is going on, and it's still happening to this, so it's not just it's going to go on, but it's already happening, is going to be the story revolving around state stimulus checks. So there are actually several states that have actually released their own stimulus check programs. I believe Alaska just released a $1,300 stimulus check, a $1,300 stimulus check. I think there was something going on in Texas as well. I haven't shared a lot of this information just because the news has physically been a lot more quieter, so hopefully that's a little bit understandable, and because also we've moved on to talk about a lot of other finance related topics. But the idea really is that state checks are still very, very much on the table. There might also be a lot of other ways to receive money as well, so we're going to talk about that, so definitely continue watching as well. But the idea is that there are several states where, and you can probably do a lot of personal research as well, which probably is going to be easier if you literally were to just Google up your state and then the word stimulus check. So in my particular case, I happen to be in New York City, so New York stimulus check. For in your case, insert state stimulus check, and you might be able to find some information. Very, very select states are doing that, so I think it's important to note that. However, for the states that are doing that, it might just be something to consider looking into, and I think that's just some maybe more brighter stuff to happen. Now, most of these programs, I will say, is that you do have to apply for, so unlike traditional stimulus checks, they are not automatic. These are all programs that kind of exist out there, but you have to physically submit an application for. In most cases, it's actually not that difficult to submit the application, but they are things that you still have to physically apply for if you just happen to know about it. It's just so much of this information is very, very under the radar right now. So if you guys appreciate this information and haven't done so, consider smashing the like button, subscribing, and hitting the bell so that if there is new information, we'll be sure to be able to share it as well. So that's really the story when it comes to state stimulus checks. Now, if you do need some extra money of some kind, I do highly recommend, especially if you're someone that's still going through difficulties financially, because we did talk about how many Americans are expected to run out of money soon. There's a video I made. Check it out at the very, very end screen. It's literally called Americans Running Out of Money. It's going to be at the end screen. You can watch it after you watch this video. I do also highly recommend trying to check out other potential government programs in your particular area. There's things such as like getting onto SNAP benefits, food stamps, things like public housing, things like potential support services, career services, job services, a lot of things to hopefully be able to at least receive some help if you are going through something right now at this time. Now, moving on to this, I want to talk a little bit about the $1,800 checks that some people have kind of been mentioning. So what this $1,800 check really is that essentially people that are on Social Security benefits, and you might have seen articles that have popped up about this, but the average amount of payment right now for people on Social Security is $1,800. So it's about $1,800. So if you happen to be on Social Security, that's the amount that people are typically receiving right now at this time. One maybe relatively great news to share is that they are still working on the COLA adjustment, so cost of living adjustment, and the inflation situation. Because they understand and know that inflation is obviously, going out of control. It's improving a lot. We shared that in the other video called Great News to Share. So if you need something more cheerful and positive to look at or watch, highly recommend checking that video out. But at the end of the day, we are still on a path to recovery. And so because of that reason, there are actually a lot of talks going on inside of Congress to try to do more programs related to Social Security, including trying to increase the amount of Social Security so that people that are on Social Security will be able to receive more money than that they are already receiving. So hopefully this is going to be financial, support during a time of a lot of need. And I think that's just maybe some other great news to also share for a lot of the people that are seniors that are watching this video, because we have a very wide age demographic, which is really awesome. Which is really, really awesome. But I figured this is something more for seniors to be able to share. And then The last thing that I really want to talk about to end this video is probably really going to just talk about what's the forward outlook going into 2024. So right now at this current time, as we have just mentioned, fourth stimulus checks are obviously sadly off the table. State stimulus checks depend on the state that you're currently in. Programs have already been existing for a while. The inflation adjustment for programs that already exist is still very, very much happening and is expected to, help out even more. But the foresight going into 2024 is that they're just going to really be working on trying to improve the inflation situation. It's important to maybe note that this also happens to be an election year, so maybe you can kind of argue that it would be in President Biden's motivation, if he decides to run again, to consider not necessarily doing stimulus programs, but certainly at least doing some kind of survival or relief program to help those that are in particular need. I know President Trump did that. Again, just speaking objectively, regardless of your political party, President Trump did that during 2020 when he did a lot of executive orders to do his own particular stimulus programs. So it would not be a shock if President Biden not necessarily did stimulus, because again, it's really important to note, we're still trying to solve inflation, but at the very least came out with some more subtle programs to maybe be able to help out. But that's really, of course, something that we don't know for sure because the future has not physically happened yet, that we're just going to be waiting around for hopefully more information to come out, even though it's been a little bit slow. But again, we'll be sure to be able to share. So with that being said, that's pretty much what I really just wanted to share in today's video. So if you guys made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to put some videos at the end you can watch after you watch this video. Some talking about some great news, some talking about Americans running out of money, so some not so good news, but some important news to share nonetheless. Like, comment, subscribe. And with that being said, hope to see you guys next time. Happy holidays and thank you guys so much for watching.